I guess I'm right after dinner because I'm here to tell you about the condition of your checkoff, and they didn't want to ruin the dinner, so that's where they put us on that thing. And I'll start off with what we've done in the past. The big issue the last couple of years was we did the referendum. As you know, we didn't start the referendum. The referendum was started by the South Dakota LMA. Hats off to Brian Hansen. He's the one that pretty much got it rolling. And of course, he hoped that the national LMA would step in and help, which they refused to. And RCAF graciously, knowing the importance of it, I guess we decided to take it on. And we, according to the executive officer of our number one contractor, and I'm not going to use names, you can figure that out, but he said that basically we failed. That the cattlemen showed us, that they liked their checkoff and all that. Well, basically, the cattlemen were pretty silent on the whole thing. That's what it is. To me, and I think to all of you out there, first I want to thank all of you that carried the petitions around and helped with it. And we did not fail. One organization, without the help of anybody else, we collected about 38,000 signatures, and that's quite a feat in there for one organization. The Karina in person approached the CBB, who is supposed to be the keeper of our act and order, and the act and the order says that we can have a referendum. You would think they'd be interested in finding out what producers want to do. They refused to help. I personally went to another cattle industry organization and asked them to help straight off. Of course, they were receiving checkoff funds, and they refused to it, but their policy was still the same as ours as far as the checkoff on there. So we were alone on the whole deal, but I feel that it was quite a win for us to come up with 38,000. And it, like it was said here yesterday, we got the attention of a lot of people on there, and RCAF is noted for being a fighter on that deal. I would like to thank all the directors and everybody, and there's 4 staff people I'd like to stand up on there, and if they're around here, Carrie Walling, Jaden, I don't know, she left on me, Jaden Moreland, stand up, and we got Candace Bullard, and of course Karina Jones at home. And Karina, if you're watching, you don't have to stand up; you can remain seated there. But anyway, they went beyond the step. I mean, they personally, a lot, like Karina in her case, she went right to sale barns along with all of you and everybody else. They worked hard to make that thing work to it. And of course, Bill directed all them. So give those 4 a big hand on there. Thank all of you. Well, let's get to the deal so we can get to the main speaker here. This is up, yeah, I guess it's up here. This is basically the contractors for 2022 that are coming up. I hope that shows up good enough you can see. And basically, every year since I was in the Cattlemen's Beef Board, the first thing I would do when the ARs, the authorization requests, come out is I would open them up. I'd go through them as to what they were wanting to do, what type of work they're proposing. Most of them are the same thing. You read the same thing all the way down, and especially this year. But then I would sort out the implementation fees on them and what it costs to do work on there. And if I can make this work. If you look at the ones in red there, the red ones are, of course, our number one contractor that gets all the business on there because they all also own the operating committee. They've since we reorganized in 1996, they have the federation, which automatically gives them half of the operating committee right there. And you can look down there and you'll see that anything that's a big dollar amount on one of them seems to belong to them. Then you look at the implementation fees. That's the 3rd, 4th column there, and then look at the percent of the AR those implementation fees that they run, and they're pretty high on their implementation fees. It used to be when I was working with CBB and them, it would be a flat 38 to 42% they would charge. All the others would charge a flat 20%. I guess that's standard operating. This has even got higher since I started on there. This next one, here's the averages of it. your total authorization requests for this year, and it's tough to nail them down because of COVID. They've extended some of them out, given them another year, but we tried to divide them up by year, and that is 45 million, almost 45.5 million. The NCBA contractor requests approved for just NCBA themselves was 32 million. Their share of the total ARs would be 71% that they're controlling on there. Implementation fees on average on all of theirs is this year ran 51.5%. Generated a revenue of 16 million, 16.5 million. That, you know darn well as I do that we've been told 100 times that money does not ever go over to the policy side and work against us on there. Well, that's like the check you pay your hired man. That's for doing the work. Once it's in their bank, they can do whatever they want with it. And that check there is only, there's probably another 10 million to be added to that comes through the Federation on that side on top of that. So that's their funding on there, and I'll show you later on what percent of that they do on it. Look at what all the rest of them do. You get down to their implementation fees, 24.5% on there. It's just about half of what the others are getting. That's how you make money cross over the mythical firewall that they have on there, on the thing. One of the places, let's back up here a second. If I get it right. Those ones in green, and I've missed one. That's the Foundation for Meat and Poultry Research and Education Group. Now that's a new group. I could not figure out where that was. I had to go and look them up on there, and it's kind of a new group. Well, what it was the formation of two groups here in 2015, I believe it was, and that was the American Meat Institute and a poultry group that went together on there, and they're starting to get contracts on there too, and quite a dollar amount. So I put the wrong one. Here we go. So I went and looked them up to see what they do, and you can read it right there. What they do for that. It really sounds pretty good. The main part of that is the foundation engages leaders from industry, and so I thought, well, I think we're part of the industry on there. So I went and looked to see who their directors are. And if you look down those directors, you just about don't find a producer on there. I guess we're not included in that group on there. If they're from the industry, I think we've been left out, and that's the case in a lot of things in the industry. I took a look at their 990 form, and there's their revenue. Program services was about 1.7 million. Employees, 0. They have no employees. They have volunteers, 31, but they do pay quite a bit of salary there. Over $1 million of salary. I'd like to see how you set up an organization like that. I'd like to be part of either the volunteer or be listed as one of the directors or whatever. And then you look at what we're contributing to them on for research to work on there, and that just about covers their salary. So there's another case, just a small example of the highway robbery that's going on in your checkoff on there deal. So then I went to NCBA. You're questioning why they're nearly 71% of their budget is coming up out of our checkoff on there, and that's their revenue there. The membership dues are $6 million, $35 million from the operating committee for doing ARs, and you can go on down there. State Beef Councils, that's the federation on there. That's $10 million. Meeting and sportsmanship is $8 million, and other investments in that is $3 million. A total of $62 million. You add those two up there from the Beef Operating Committee and the Federation of the States, you come up with $45 million. So in other words, we're contributing about 72% of their budget on there is what they're working off us every year. Folks, this is getting serious. We cannot seem to change things in Washington on our referendum and that. So our question is, what can we do about that? Well, it brings us down to 3 things, and I'm just throwing this out so we can think about it, and you can talk to your board of directors and see what you want to do. But It's either litigation, legislation, or from within, which what we tried with the referendum on there. We do have legislation out there right now, the OFF Act, and it's got a very good, there's some things in there that have been added that we might not necessarily agree with, but there is the point in there where the contractors cannot be a policy organization, and I think that's pretty valuable. The OFF Act is currently sitting in the House Agriculture Committee. Nothing has been moved on it. You know, it probably won't be this year, election year, but it's something maybe we better look at and fire up and see if we can get it moving. There is 8 co-sponsors on there, besides Representative Tillis, who introduced the bill, and so that's one of the deals on there we can do. Referendum from within, maybe another referendum. We got a lot of attention on the last one. It's up to you. One of the problems with our last referendum was it got sold from those that were opposed to it as a yes or no vote, whether you wanted your checkoff. Maybe it's time we have a referendum to fix the checkoff with certain key points. Maybe it's time that the Federation of State Beef Councils becomes accountable to somebody besides NCBA. Maybe they should be a standalone and have their own ID numbers, and maybe they should be picked just like the people on the Cattlemen's Beef Board, where organizations put in the names and your Secretary of Ag does the okay on them, because technically they don't even have to report to the Secretary of Ag like the other 10 that sit on the Beef Operating Committee on there. And there's other changes that need to be in there. Maybe it's time that we do work on the act in the order to get the policy organizations out as contractors and that. The other one is litigation, and I'm going to let our speaker, he's a very experienced person, I'm going to introduce him, and he'll tell us about some of the litigation that's been going on.